There's a silent, invisible threshold that happens almost every single day for people like Cole. The exact second the school gates close, or the office clock hits 5, or the violent pressure of social energy finally mercifully stops. In that precise moment, they don't feel excitement. They feel a heavy, overwhelming sense of relief. It's not because they harbor hatred toward humanity. It's not because they romanticize loneliness, but because after hours of forced smiling, artificial responding, toxic listening, and performing the daily ritual of existence around other people, their nervous system isn't just tired, it is completely overloaded. So, while the rest of the world wants to paint the night town red, Cole wants to vanish, back to his dim room, back to the sanctuary of absolute silence, back to the one geographic location on Earth where nobody requires a single thing from him. And that is the fundamental tragedy people misunderstand about those who seek solitude. The world assumes they enjoy isolation more than human connection. But many who seek solitude are not running away from people. They are running away from pure, unadulterated exhaustion. Some who seek solitude don't actually love being alone. They just finally, for the first time, all day, feel safe there. We live in a world that thrives on lazy labels. The quiet, the shy, the withdrawn, as if human personalities just magically appear, fully formed, out of thin air. But psychological anatomy is never that simple. It's true. Some individuals are biologically born with an acutely sensitive nervous system. Data proves that certain children react violently to overstimulation from infancy. Loud rooms don't just feel loud, they feel aggressive. Emotional conflict feels physically heavy. Crowds feel like a slow energy drain. The word adaptation is a survival mechanism, and that adaptation began much earlier than his friends or family will ever realize. Perhaps it started at the family dinner table, where every time his small voice tried to claim a space, a louder voice cut him off, or dismissed him, or humiliated his innocence. At first, it was just a minor sting, but the subconscious mind keeps a meticulous score. And eventually, the young brain internalizes a deeply dangerous equation. Staying silent is infinitely easier than begging to be heard. Then the school system locks the cage. The loud, chaotic children inherit the attention. The performative kids get rewarded. The aggressively confident dominate every room. Meanwhile, children like Cole retreat into the shadows, observing instead of competing. And over time, that habit of observation hardwires itself into an identity. Then comes the battlefield of early friendships. Maybe he trusted someone once and watched his vulnerability turn into a weapon against him. Maybe he became weary of being labeled the weird, quiet kid. And after enough moments of feeling completely out of sync with his dreams and peers, his brain stopped asking, "How do I belong?" and started asking a much darker question. How do I ensure I never feel this exposed again? Silence becomes heavily addictive. The moment speaking starts feeling emotionally expensive. But here is the critical divergence that most observers entirely overlook. Not every child who walks through fire becomes someone who seeks solitude. Two siblings can inherit the exact same chaotic household and grow into two diametrically opposed adults. Why? Because personality is not a simple product of trauma. It is a complex alchemy of neurological sensitivity, emotional processing, and instinctive coping styles. One child survives the pain by screaming louder. Another survives by making themselves invisible. One fights like hell for validation. Another abdicates the stage entirely. Cole's brain calculated. Safety resides in strategic withdrawal. His peer's brain concluded, safety resides in total dominance. Neither path is accidental. Both are brilliant designs of human survival. So when people say those who seek solitude just prefer their own company, they are scratching a surface they do not understand. Many who seek solitude became deeply attached to it because it was the only space left on Earth where their nervous system didn't have to fight for its life. To an outsider, silence looks like an empty room. To a bruised soul like Cole, silence is the only clean oxygen left. And here is the quiet paradox that nobody dares to speak out loud. A significant number of those who seek solitude are excruciatingly lonely. Yet, the very millisecond a genuine connection becomes possible, they actively pull back. It is not an absence of desire for intimacy. It is a paralyzing terror of vulnerability. Because when your formative years taught you that openness leads directly to pain, letting someone see you feels like giving them a knife. That is why Cole can look at a text message for 4 hours, aching to reply, but paralyzed by how to phrase it. That is why he carries a desperate wish to be known, while meticulously building walls to ensure he remains a secret. Most who seek solitude are not terrified of other people. They are terrified of the devastating emotional risk that comes with being truly seen. And after spending decades navigating reality this way, a secondary paralysis begins. They slowly, agonizingly, lose the language to translate themselves to the outside world. It's not because their inner world is hollow or devoid of feeling. It's because they became too dangerously comfortable processing the entire universe alone. We look at their silence, and we assume there is nothing there. But on the inside, the mind is a claustrophobic, crowded theater. Unresolved thoughts, ancient memories, replayed conversations from 3 years ago, relentless, self-sabotaging analysis, and exhausting emotional calculations, all burning through their bandwidth simultaneously. And this is the precise anatomical reason why those who seek solitude loathe small talk. It's not born from an attitude of intellectual superiority. It's not because they look down on light conversation. It's because superficial interactions burn through their currency faster than deep, soul-bearing connections. Cole can anchor himself quietly in the corner of a loud social gathering for hours, not out of arrogance, but because the shallow script of human interaction feels like a grueling performance. Crazy weather we're having. How's the job treating you? What have you been up to lately? To someone like Cole, these phrases are not conversation. They are an exhausting tax paid to survive a social choreography that has zero emotional substance. A vast majority of those who seek solitude do not lack social fluency. They are simply bankrupt from paying for connections that never dare to go beneath the surface, which is why, when the day is done, they don't daydream about crowded venues. They daydream about the clean slate of home, a room devoid of noise, the barrier of headphones, low, non-intrusive lighting, zero expectations, zero performance, and absolutely zero pressure to react with the correct facial expression. Just stillness. To an extrovert, that image might look like depression, but to one who seeks solitude, that room is an intensive care unit for the soul. And this is where the raw truth of the story unraveling, because the most painful component of seeking solitude is not the isolation, it is the chronic, systemic misunderstanding. The collective world sees their quietness and diagnoses it as coldness. They look at their boundaries and misread it as snobbery. People genuinely think Cole despises society, but the reality is, he loves humanity deeply. He just loathes the fact that he has to morph into a cheap, loud caricature of himself just to be tolerated by it. Some who seek solitude are not hiding from the world outside. They are desperately hiding from the version of themselves the world refused to accept. And after enough miles walked in that exhaustion, solitude completely transforms its meaning. It stops feeling like a punishment. it begins feeling like a shield, like a profound relief, like the sacred moment you finally unbuckle a heavy suit of armor. That is why those who seek solitude drop off the grid without warning, not because they lack a heart for people, but because the external world is deafeningly loud when your mind is cursed to never stop processing it. But there is a breathtaking transformation that occurs when the climate changes, when one who seeks solitude is finally handed true, unconditional emotional safety. The walls don't just come down, they evaporate. They speak with a depth you never anticipated. They laugh with a raw joy you never imagined. They protect and care with a fierce loyalty most people will never experience. Because underneath that historic silence, there was never a void. There was caution. There was an exposed nerve. There was a protective fear. And perhaps the ultimate healing for a tired soul is not learning how to force themselves to be louder. It is simply finding a rare circle of humans around whom silence no longer feels like a prerequisite for survival. Because in the final analysis, the choice of solitude was never a hatred of the crowd. It was a lifelong search for a single square inch of space where your nervous system could finally drop its weapons. We spend our entire lives telling those who seek solitude they are hiding from life, but the truth is, they are just trying to survive the wreckage of it. If this architecture of the mind felt like a mirror to your soul, leave a single word in the comments. Quiet. Not to feed an algorithm, but to let the other hidden souls know that peace is the only place left where the mind can finally stop defending itself.